Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Maze Runner, The Death Cure, starring Dylan O'Brien, King Hong Lee, I meant to say, K.S. Scaldelario, Thomas Brody Sangster, Will Poulter, Walton Goggins, Aidan Gillen, and Patricia Clarkson, and directed by Wes Ball. Now, before I get into this movie, I remember seeing it twice. Once in IMAX, once in regular, and the one in the regular... the one in IMAX didn't have very much, and it did fill up 26% of the movie up to the screen. And my second time was in a regular theater, and I had a guy that wouldn't shut up half the time, so at least I took notes and understood what the hell was happening, so let's get into it. The opening heist with Thomas, returned by Dylan O'Brien, and the gang take a train part out of the Wicked train to find Minho, returned by King Hong Lee, who was captured by Wicked at the end of the last week's movie, when Teresa, returned by K.S. Scaldelario, betrays them for Wicked in the Scorch Trials. The heist was a good way to start off the film, and it was a lot of fun, and it had some clever moments as well. Thomas was unfortunately unsuccessful finding Minho, and as it turns out, he was on a different train car, but Vince, returned by Barry Pepper, takes them off the train car and gets the other kids on board a ship to a place where Wicked can't find them. Was a nice way for us, the audience, to take a breath from the prolonged heist sequence at the beginning of the movie. And like the first one, it's a turn-off-your-brain kind of movie, which made me believe again, we're going back to a B movie. Minho dreams that he's back in the maze where it all began in the first movie, and all of a sudden he's in a long hallway and a griever shows up. Depending on if you are a fan of the series, it's either a good or a bad thing. But I personally was okay with it because he was dreaming about it, which I don't like that usually in other movies. But here, it's for the movie's title reasons, because this movie is called The Death Cure. And it's part of the idea for this movie. When Thomas says it's only one zombie they find, but as it turns out, yeah, and I predicted this in the very first viewing, there was a whole army of them, and Thomas and Newt, returned by Thomas Brody Sangster. That honestly felt more predictable than anything in the rest of the movie, in my opinion. The Wicked building shoots at all the people who needed a cure, and the next thing you know, someone from the Resistance captures Thomas, and who's behind a mask? Surprise! Here it comes. This is the part where it's spoilery. Gally, returned by Will Poulter. And it was a shocker for everyone except me. When I walked into the movie theater knowing... I knew he was coming back somewhere in this movie somewhere. I honestly thought he would be going to be in anyone's nightmare. But he's back from the dead, and we get introduced to Lawrence, played by Walton Goggins, with makeup. And I'll talk about him when I get to the Quentin Tarantino stuff. When I first saw this movie, I swear to God, I thought that was William Fichtner. But I had to get a close look at his face, and I'm like, no, it's Walton Goggins with a makeup job that makes him look really ugly, no offense to him. And I think they pull it off really well. I'll give that as a compliment. Jansen, returned by Aidan Gillen, is told by Dr. Ava Page, returned by Patricia Clarkson, to not let Teresa know that Thomas is back. She needs to focus on getting the cure. Didn't make any sense to me because she'll find out eventually. Gally tells Thomas the only way to get into Wicked is Teresa, and Newt thinks Thomas is trying to save her, and Newt doesn't like the idea and almost bursts out in anger like a zombie. And we find out in the next scene he'll eventually become a zombie, and that moment did feel a little flat, but it'll come eventually when he turns into a zombie. Teresa talks to Minho, and Minho flips out on Teresa because she betrayed them by the end of the Scorch Trials. And that was understandable, but because if someone betrayed me, I'd attack as well. Sorry, guys. I did like that moment of the film. Teresa finds Thomas and the Resistance captures her to get to the plan, proving there's no cure, and that character I thought was doomed and by the end of this movie. And I just wanted her to die at some point in the movie, because I thought she deserved it at this point, because the 2 movies in a row, I don't like the character after the first movie. The scenes when Thomas and Newt go with Teresa into the Wicked building, and they're hiding under masks, and they're running around and shooting at Jensen and the Wicked Men, felt very prolonged, as well as the chase sequence between Brenda and Wicked guards, and Minho getting rescued by Thomas, Newt, and Gally. And the way Minho punches one guard and throws him like the Hulk was just hysterical. But that action sequence felt very prolonged, and this is a very long movie at almost 2.5 hours, and it felt very action-packed, which is what I was excited during all of that. But after it's done, I'm getting really exhausted and realize, and then that's when I suddenly realized, oh shit, I've got about 45 more minutes to go. Teresa finds out Thomas's blood is the only thing stopping the death cure. Well, curing people with the death cure, and as the audience finds out, did feel a little unrealistic, because how is it that one person's blood can cure everybody? Like, is this for real? He would have died! Thomas and Newt fight each other as he becomes a zombie. Newt, I mean. And I felt very bad for Newt, because I don't remember him being infected by a zombie. Maybe it was that scene when I predicted earlier. So that to me made no damn sense, and Thomas had to kill him at that point. I was very sad that he had to die, and to be remain dead by the end of the movie. Dr. Page gets shot by not Thomas. He negotiated to leave his friends alone, but Jansen, who was Dr. Page's killer, and that came out of the blue. And Jensen puts Thomas to rest and keep him tied up until Teresa betrays Jansen, which head scratcher for me what I just did there, and they get into a fight involving Teresa between Thomas and Jansen, while Jansen shoots Thomas in the stomach, and I thought Thomas was going to die. I mean, really. But he's alive by the end of this movie. Teresa and Thomas go to the roof of the Wicked building, and there's a helicopter full of the Resistance. Thomas makes it, but Teresa dies in the fire of Wicked. And once Thomas is on that helicopter after Teresa's death, he's knocked out for at least 3 days, and they end up on a beach with the stone full of dead people. Well, not full of, well, it's a stone to honor the dead people. Underground, and Thomas and the rest of the gang make it out alive, while Jansen died by the fire by zombies. And the movie ends with Newt's kindly written note for Thomas. I thought it was a good way to end the film. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 5.9 out of 10. The first one is better, but this is better than the Scorch Trials, and it is a B-movie series. And I like the characters, except for that second film, by the way. And I like the characters better here than the other two, except for a couple, but I had fun with it as a turn off your brain kind of movie. It's a B-movie, so what am I going to do? So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for the Death Cure. And before I say goodbye, please be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Watch some more videos. And please leave a positive comment in the bottom. And until next time, Wicked is good.